For many South Carolinians, it took days or even longer to get the lights back on after Hurricane Helene. Power lines and poles snapped around much of the state. Plus, larger infrastructure damage left more than 1 million South Carolina homes and businesses in the dark. State House reporter Mary Green explains if those widespread outages might spark a push to bury more power lines in South Carolina.
Snapped and downed power lines, a common sight across dozens of South Carolina counties in the wake of Helene, leaving many to wonder if the devastation from the storm will prompt more above-ground power lines to be buried.
It'd be a good investment if you get somebody to pay for it, but money's not free.
Bob Pauling is the CEO of Mid-Carolina Electric Cooperative, one of the state's 18 co-ops, which collectively provide power to about a third of South Carolinians. He says the cost of burying power lines can be around 10 to 15 times more expensive than installing above-ground lines. Just for Mid-Carolina, he says that could easily be about a $2 billion price tag, and about a third of its lines are already below the ground.
To put all the power lines underground, just in case another major hurricane comes in the next 100 years, would just be a really interesting business decision to make.
State House leaders have pledged to put South Carolina's recovery after Helene at the top of their priorities when lawmakers gavel back in here in January. But based on early conversations, their focus is not on what the state's role in burying power lines might be.
Obviously, we will come back and look at issues, how we can mitigate some of these disasters. And so, but one thing that we know about burying power lines is it's very expensive.
There have been some issues, even with the storm, in some of the areas where there have buried power lines. So it's not a one size solves that issue. So I think we just have to have more evaluation.
In press briefings following the immediate aftermath of Helene, Governor Henry McMaster told reporters he believed the government could have a role in this work, but not in Columbia.
That would be a good federal project, but they're expensive. But we wouldn't have some of the problems we have now if we had more in certain places, and of course that would save us a lot of these expenses. But there are a lot of discussions. Every time we have something like this, we learn things that we can do a little bit better.
Obviously, the utilities, those costs are passed on to the ratepayers. So I would agree with the governor. This would be a great federal issue for them to engage in.
Well, Bob Pauling from Mid-Carolina also says underground power lines aren't a silver bullet for outages either, particularly with so much of the state prone to flooding. He says in general, while it takes more effort to knock out power to underground lines than above ground lines, it also takes longer to restore it.